We now go on to the second of the two surveillance videos. In this one, I give you a few more details about some of the actual surveillance systems in South Africa. So during this video, you're going to learn a bit more about the infectious diseases system, the cancer system, the pathology system for ex-miners, and the reporting of occupational diseases and so on for occupational surveillance. The infectious diseases surveillance system has recently been reformed and restructured. It covers more than 50 diseases, but it also covers things like antibiotic resistance amongst bacteria that needs to be notified so that action can be taken to attend to that. And all the details are laid out in the Government Gazette, and I've given you the reference here. An important thing is that all our surveillance systems are in fact underpinned by relevant legislation. So in the case of the infectious diseases system in the Government Gazette, you'll see if you go to the appendix to this particular section that it's divided into categories 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each category covers different aspects. So tables 1 and 2 list the diseases that have to be covered and reported by healthcare providers, pathologists, public and private health laboratories. Tables 3 and 4 look at other aspects of disease control, such as drug resistance and so on. And these here we have reporting required just from pathologists, public and private health laboratories. So this doesn't involve practitioners. It doesn't mention it in the appendices, but it does mention elsewhere in the regulations that medical schemes are also required to report categories 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that part of the system is currently being set up. Remember, although most of these are infectious diseases, 1 or 2 examples where they aren't infectious diseases at all. Very important to note that, again, it's stated in the regulations that the reporting must take place for the case, and separately there must be reporting for any deaths. This is important because they use this information in order to look at the case fatality rates. And if you've only reported the deaths and not the case, then obviously you're going to overestimate the case fatality rate. And if you only report the case but not the death, then you're going to underestimate the case fatality rate. So this is very important that both occurrences are in fact reported. Here's a very nice diagram that was provided by Dr. Lazarus Kwanza from the National Institute for Communicable Diseases. Dr. Kwanza is extraordinary staff in our School of Public Health, and this is looking at the communicable diseases or infectious diseases surveillance system and the different flows of information. And you see it's quite an elaborate and complex system of data collection. We don't mind if diseases will get reported by the laboratory and by the caregiver. That's not a problem. In fact, they're both required to report. The system will sort out duplications. You needn't worry about that. Certainly, clinicians mustn't abdicate and say, oh, well, the lab is now taking care of it, so I don't need to notify. They do need to notify because there's additional information on that notification form. Then we've got the cancer registration system, which is again covered by legislation under the National Health Act in this case as well. All institutions to submit officially completed form. Laboratories submit data electronically, and then there's a form that includes much more information about each case, which must also be submitted. The data are analyzed using the International Association for Research in Cancer Methodology, and reports are available on the National Cancer Registry website, so you can access those reports. Then the PATHOT I've already spoken about briefly. There are over 110,000 records in their database. It's a very large occupational health database, one of the biggest in the world, and it's also the longest standing electronic database in the Department of Health in South Africa. So it goes right back to 1975 when it was established. And this database contains information about lung disease, heart and lung disease for all miners who die. By law, they're entitled to an autopsy unless the family doesn't agree. And these autopsies should be done irrespective of the cause of death. This is current miners and ex-miners. When they die, they all get these autopsies, and I'm grateful to Professor Jill Murray from Wits University, who provided this information and checked this information for me. There are over 120 scientific publications to date. That's in 2020. And again, the annual summaries and reports are available online. So it's important that we have this kind of transparency, that these data are available, that you can they're in the public domain, they're not kept secret. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the occupational lung disease surveillance systems, because there are quite a few. You can see here there's 4 different acts: the Occupational Health and Safety Act, the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act, the Mine Health and Safety Act, the Occupational Diseases in Mines and Works Act. They're covered by the Department of Labor, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, and the Department of Health. So this is very complex because we have 3 different ministries, 3 different departments that are involved, and 4 different acts. And they all have aspects of the act, as you can see if you read this table, that pertain to surveillance and the surveillance function. And thanks to Dr. Muzi Zungu, who's also a joint appointment with our school. So he's a senior lecturer in our school, for providing this table. I've just listed a few publications here that you might find interesting to read.